Um, Hi, everybody. Um, Good morning. This is Roger Sherman. I'm the director of the Idaho Children's Trust Fund, as you probably all know. I just want to introduce this series quick. So we are, over the next few weeks, going to put forward some Hope Conquers ACEs related online sessions. This week, I guess definitely throughout the month of April, since it's Child Abuse Prevention Month, we want to be doing these. But if we're going to be sequestered for a while, might be a good opportunity for us to put out more of our community practice work, Hope Conquers ACEs work, for a longer period of time, for various audiences. And then we're gonna record this and make it available to the rest of the world. This session that we're going to participate in a few minutes, or in about a minute probably, is called Self-Care in an Unprecedented Time. This is the second of two that Julie's done already, and then Julie will do a third and a fourth one before the end of the month. Tomorrow, Kristen Bonet is going to do one on how healthy social connections matter, and so that's going to be Wednesday, 4:15, or on April 15th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon Mountain, 1 o'clock Pacific. And then on Thursday, Maureen Durning, who's on the phone or is on the line here, is going to do how to bless a child. And that's going to happen at 10 a.m. on the 16th. And then for anybody who's also interested, we have sent out some information about Dr. Bruce Perry, who's going to be speaking on a national webinar on Thursday as well in the afternoon at 2 o'clock. So that is the plan. So let me just quick introduce Julie Meek. Many of you probably know her. She's part of the Hope Conquers ACEs community of practice. She's a licensed clinical social worker who does a lot of counseling, has just recently left her job at Lee Pesky Learning Center, where she's been for a number of years, and is an expert in self-care, has done several trainings for us at the Strengthening Families Training Institute. So Julie, you're on.
Okay. Thanks, Roger. And yeah, thanks again for this opportunity. It's an honor to be invited to speak in any way, and especially right now with how challenging things are, and how different kinds of challenges everyone's facing at this time, to be able to speak to that and to offer what I can. So as we move forward, there's a handful of us in the room here, and I just want to remind everyone this is recorded. We will give you the opportunity to chime in and ask questions at the end. You certainly do not have to. There's also a chat bar if you want to ask any questions, and Roger will be watching that as well, and letting me know if I'm missing something. I guess I just want to start with I guess first a reminder that there is I'll put a link to the previous video. This the content I want to share with you today will build upon what I already shared, and it's kind of in that context. But I also want to say that this is in a way kind of an impossible task. Like there's no possible way for one person to give perfect self-care advice to another person right now, and I think that's also, I think that's a fragile topic and something to be taken, in just a careful way. I think there's just so much advice out there, and I feel personally bombarded with advice of different ways that I should be responding right now, with either like within myself, or how to manage my moods, or how to engage with the community or respond in the right way. So in moving forward with our conversation today, I just want to keep that in mind, that this is a very personal experience for each and every person, and is changing daily. Like what self-care means for me today may look very different tomorrow. So I'm personally trying to be as flexible and self-compassionate as possible. And I want to encourage everybody to do that as well. Um, all that being said, I am going to offer something, like a framework for how one could look at self-care, just to have something to utilize and then to make your own, if that's helpful to you. So, some of the things that occurred to me this week in preparation for this talk, I've noticed that within myself and within others around me, something really unique is happening in that, or even in my clients, that being kind of forced to isolate, right? Being sequestered, and having so many fundamental life changes so abruptly is bringing about coping patterns, old coping patterns within myself and others that have are ancient for me. I've been there for a long time, and I think that's happening for a lot of people. That the way we coped with stress in our childhoods is kind of coming up for us right now. Even some things, some coping patterns that are not as healthy or that I thought I'd resolved, are coming up for me and others right now. And I think, I've been pondering that and kind of just looking at why that is. Why would this be such a challenging time interpersonally or intrapsychically, as well as, just trying to get our footing and getting our basic needs met. And for a moment, I was looking through an attachment lens, attachment being that, the attachment theory being the theory that helps us understand how we fundamentally rely on and attach to our primary caregivers in our families of origin. And if you're not familiar with attachment theory, it's very widespread now, so you can even just Google it and learn about the different attachment styles or different attachment strategies people tend to adopt. But I think there's something interesting happening now in that a person develops secure and healthy attachment in their families of origin when their needs are mostly basically met, and when they truly believe that their caregiver loves them unconditionally and that they're reliable and there for them at all times, or at most of the time. There's no such thing as a perfect childhood. There's no such thing as perfect attachment, but basically secure attachment, that precious other loved one is there for that child, and that person develops a healthy attachment style, is able to trust people in general, recover from upset in their relationships if that happens. Insecure, avoidant, or disorganized attachment, and there's other names and categories depending on the researcher you're following, develops when for some reason needs aren't met consistently, or even if that attachment figure, that caregiver person, becomes a source of threat, or a source of danger, or terror, or just fear. And as I watched myself, go to hug my loved one, but then make myself stop, right? In the present day, I'm asking myself to stop. My nervous system is automatically in like an irreconcilable dilemma, that I want to go to this person, and at the same time I stop and resist. And that's very strange for my body, right? Like I cognitively understand that I still love that person, they still love me, but there's an embodied strange experience happening, for me personally. And as I talk, about this to clients and close others, that makes a lot of sense to some of us. Like, oh wow, this is very disorienting on a physiological level, to not be able to go to my precious other people, my most close relationships, for comfort and for reassurance that everything is truly okay. So as much as I'm trying to self-regulate and be there for myself, we're all kind of going through maybe what could be seen as an attachment crisis on a physiological level. And so, and there's grief to that, and there's all kinds of emotions that may be coming up. And so with that frame, I'm working really hard to be compassionate with myself and with people around me as they are maybe not behaving normally, or like maybe like having strange reactions, or exaggerated reactions, or shutting down. or, you know, even compassionate with myself in moments that I'm not able to be compassionate with myself or somebody else. Like as soon as I can gain consciousness again about what's going on in the present moment, taking that to be, you know, the footing from which I will step forward now. Like, okay, well, I'll accept what just happened and have compassion for, you know, whatever's happened up until this point, even if I wasn't fully conscious, for all the reactions that I, you know, that I displayed today or that I was part of today. So I hope that makes sense. It's easier to have a conversation with people than to talk at the screen right now about complex topics. But you know, I hope that makes sense for maybe just adding even more of a, you know, compassionate and understanding lens to the challenge of self-care at this time, and also the importance of it. I think what I failed to say in the last video is that, you know, the goal, well, maybe I didn't fail to say it, I just want to say it again. The goal of self-care, the reason I feel it's important at this time, is to allow us to be as regulated as possible and as present as possible, so that we can, you know, we can grow from this experience and also be there for our loved ones as much as we want to be able to look back on this experience and be able to say that we did our best, you know, that we utilize this time to the best of our ability to learn about ourselves and each other, and to you know, evolve with what's happening on the planet right now. You know, and that process is not possible if we're constantly in fight or flight, or if we're constantly in a state of reactivity. So self-care being such a diverse and broad topic, you know, there's so many different ways a person might so many different strategies a person might utilize to become more grounded and to take care of themselves. You know, I want this to be a, you know, a flexible conversation, and allow maybe for some feedback or questions right now before we go into a framework that I've put together that can guide a person in their self-care journey during this time. So I think I will just take a second before we move forward. Are there any questions or comments, or did anyone have any thoughts or anything they wanted to add to what I've mentioned so far? Okay.
I don't see anything in the chat at this
Yeah.
point either.
Okay. Roger, does that make sense? Kind of the, you know, the points I've made so far. Is there any feedback that you have or thoughts that came up for you?
Well, I really like the idea of, you know, that we are sort of, again, as you titled it, you know, unprecedented times, and, you know, that human need. I know I've been feeling, you know, some sense of disconnection because I'm a hugger and I like to touch people, and, you know, all of that has kind of been precluded by this, and that does, you know, it does cause me to, I suppose, feel somewhat dysregulated in a clinical term. And so I appreciate that you're sort of putting it in that framework.
Okay, so last time we were on, I talked about Maslow's hierarchy, and the framework I'm going to share with you now is 8 different areas. They don't fit neatly into Maslow's hierarchy, but really what these different areas I'm going to share with you are designed to get at how do we meet our basic needs in order to become, you know, to set ourselves up for the highest likelihood of success in terms of emotional regulation and the ability to be present and take perspective and you know, be mindful of ourselves and know what we're feeling. You know, how do we set up our lives to have self-care built in on a physiological, on an interpersonal, and on a self-regulation level. So I'm not a person that knows a lot about how to make like graphic design or anything on computers. So I drew this out, and then I'm going to share with you a Google Doc that allows you to turn this framework into like a worksheet. So I don't know if you can see this, but there's 8 different areas we're going to talk about. And the foundation before moving into these 8 areas is that there's physical and psychological safety. So if you're not actually physically or emotionally safe at this time, it doesn't make sense to try to access self-care. And if anyone is feeling like they need resources on that, please let me or Roger know. And then we can move into the 8 different areas. But it's a lot to take on, and there's no way to do 8 different areas of self-care perfectly. They're just places that a person could access to be able to set up their selves for success in terms of self-regulation and feeling good. So now I'm going to share a Google Doc with you, and this is an experiment. Please let me know if things aren't working. But the first 4 we're going to work with today are social connection, which I kind of talked about last time. I'm making a more like strategic plan with that. That and exercise and movement, a sleep schedule, a sleep support plan, and getting outside are the first 4 areas that you could work with today if you wanted. So I'm going to go in the chat now. Hopefully everybody can see this. And there's the link to the Google Doc. So take a second to check it out. And the first page has those 4 categories I just mentioned, and then some thinking prompts at the bottom, some questions to ask yourself. The second page has the 4 other areas, and a person, you're welcome to, this is for you. So if you want to copy and paste this into a Word document or make your own sheet and just like manipulate it to match your needs more specifically, I definitely welcome you to do that. This framework, has been developed between me and clients and friends over the years. It started with 5 areas, and then as I spoke with clients and made basically resiliency plans with clients, self-care plans with clients, and participants at conferences, and that more and more kept getting revealed. And I feel good about these 8 as kind of a starting point for anybody that wants to think about their self-care plan. And honestly, as I was making my own using this sheet, I felt relieved because I don't know about you, but I have like links to tons of different resources that have come out, especially in the midst of the pandemic, for self-care, for different resources. And to me, it's very disorganized and scattered. And, I'm not a naturally organized person, but I value organization. So once I put some of those resources into these categories that I liked, and then also like my own personal plan, I felt like I could relax. Like I had a plan, I had the information a little more organized.
Julie, would you like this up on the screen?
What's that?
Would you like this up on the screen?
Well, I think I can do that. I mean, it looks like on the Google Doc, at least 3 people are looking at it. I'm going to go back to Zoom now. Is anybody having trouble accessing the document or any questions?
That's fine.
Okay. So I'm going to show you an example of what it could look like completed. This is the one I did for myself. So I could share a screen, and then I can also give you the link to it. So the second link here is, did it work? Oh,
yeah, it's up there in the chat.
They're like right next to each other. They're hard to see. And then I'll share my screen and go to my plan. So here's one example. Obviously, this is just me, right? So this is not an expectation or anything, but just an example. For social connection, I sit down and make a plan with my family every day. We don't necessarily follow that plan exactly, but it helps us, connect with each other and just make sure everyone's needs get met. I'm trying to talk to my parents a couple times a week. I try to call or text or write a letter to somebody every day, some kind of outreach every day, or respond to someone that I haven't gotten back to yet. Scheduling 2 to 3 FaceTime calls with like family over in Washington or Kentucky. There's a weekly Zoom chat with a group of lady friends that's happening, and I have not been prioritizing that, and I'd like to. And prioritizing connection with my partner, because right now we're passing the baton back and forth, and I feel like we barely actually talk to each other. So, creating a plan for that. Movement and exercise, the reason I think this should be included in the first week or like immediately for anybody trying to make a self-care plan is that it's just so regulating for the entire nervous system, and makes everything more manageable, or like feel more manageable. So some form of movement or exercise or play built into each day, even if it's just 5 minutes, is what I'm trying to do and recommending to everybody I work with or anybody who has, wants advice on this. Sleep support, again, it's really easy to lose track of our sleep schedule, and therefore it's really easy to lose track of a routine or schedule in general if our sleep is off kilter. So, there's a lot of advice out there on, how to get more sleep, and a person may need more professional support if they're really having a hard time with sleep. But in general, trying to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even, regardless of the quality of sleep, or if, if it was easy to fall asleep right when you were supposed to, just trying to keep that schedule as regular as possible, because that sets up the rest of the day for a more consistent routine. And also is just so important for mental health. I mean, depression has such a higher likelihood of setting in if we're sleep deprived or if our sleep schedules are even just off. There's a lot of misinformation about sleep out there, that you can catch up on it, or, that it's like a bucket that you can empty and fill. It's more like a wheel that needs to be consistent to have the greatest results for people mental health wise. And then I debated about what to include for the fourth one, whether like relaxation and was more important than, everything's important, right? So this is what I decided for me. The other four are here. So if you decide something else is more important for you, that's fine. But I decided I have to get outside to be regulated. That's absolutely super important for me. And then just other ideas for myself that you may benefit from. I'm limiting my news absorption to 20 minutes a day, and I'm only using credible sources because it's just there's just so much information, and I get sucked in and can get pretty disoriented by the tragedy everywhere, and mismanagement of that tragedy everywhere. So just trying to keep that as only as needed, so I don't try to control things outside of my control, and practicing self-compassion and flexibility. I put in why this plan is important to me, what could get in the way, and what supports or skills I might need to be more successful, like using a planner or a whiteboard, or using reminders on my phone, or asking for support from my partner. So since we have 6 minutes left, I think I'm going to stop now and let people either work on this, or ask questions, or give me some feedback, because I'm definitely open to that. Just wanting to offer you what I can, and hopefully it's helpful to you.
What do you think are some of the barriers to being able to, to implement your self-care plan? I mean, you've kind of talked about kind of your own feelings about some of that, and I think all of us are feeling like this is a good thing to do. But what are the, what might you feel are the barriers to being able to really accomplish, or maybe accomplish is the wrong word. That's probably the problem too.
That's the problem. Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. It feels like an extra, and, another thing to do. I was going to share this coping sheet that a doctor created over at St. Luke's when the pandemic first became relevant for Boise, or more relevant for Boise. And, practice self-care was a bullet, on the long list of coping strategies, when, adopting self-care is really more, I feel like, like adjusting your entire mindset. And so what I'm hoping for with this framework is that it becomes like a way for a person to create their own guide for what's important to them when they can, as they can, so that they can be the best version of themselves. Things that get in the way, just crazy mood swings, can get in the way of self-care, like, experiencing a low motivation moment, or being exhausted, and being present with yourself and kind to yourself in those moments can be the self-care of like, okay, I'm going to change my expectations of myself today. That is going to be my self-care. So I feel
Right.
like, thinking of it as more of a lens rather than a to-do list,
Yeah,
is,
that's
you know,
important.
and that's a great question, because we could work on like, what is that lens? Um,
So Maureen is raising her hand.
mhm.
I don't know if she needs to be let in
I
or
think
if
I
she
need
can
to
just.
unmute her. So, okay, Maureen, you're unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think you just kind of said what I was gonna what I was gonna ask about.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the challenge of self-care is that the to-do list can can just be the opposite of self-care, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
just let everything go and figure, what am I doing? A good friend of mine used to say, that she knew somebody who said, what is your purpose in life? And they said, well, what are you doing right now? Well, right now I'm talking on the Zoom call. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's your purpose in life. What
Right.
you're doing
Right.
right now. If I'm eating a bagel, that's my purpose in life.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so just to have that sense that every single moment is exactly right, is
Mm-hmm.
exactly perfect, and not to put judgment on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you were just saying that. So.
Right. Right. But maybe to add to the foundation here is like, yeah, you need to be safe and you need to have your basic needs met, but you also need to have a lens of constant presence and self-compassion, to come back to the present moment and be mindful of how can I be most compassionate to myself in this moment is the greatest act of self-care that you can really do.
Yeah, well, one thing maybe just
Yeah.
add, because you're talking about what can you do for self-care. One of the things that I just feel like, the fight, flight, or freeze right now, I'm just frozen as to what to do for other care. Every night, all my late night guys, oh, here's another charity, and the church says, oh, we're going to give out food, and like, I have done nothing because I don't know. I don't know what to do. And I'm trying to just figure, okay, that's all right too. Maybe someday I'll figure out the perfect thing to donate to, and then
Oh, right.
and then I won't be
Right.
frozen anymore.
Right. Right. There's so many needs and demands. And if you're locked up, you can't even access your ability to prioritize it's impossible to prioritize correctly right now with 1,000 demands in all directions. And in your case, it's the perceived demand of wanting to be helpful to as many people as possible. I totally get that.
And it seems like that may be the value of this, this 8-part plan, right? If you're doing some planning, I mean, in the lower part, gives some opportunity to think about, well, what is it what is, what do I really care about? Where should I put my money if I'm going to donate to things?
Mm-hmm. And, as a kind of a side effect to self-care is the ability to better prioritize, right? And to better, move from a centered place in your decision making. I've really been enjoying Tara Brach's offerings, specifically the Reign of Self-Compassion. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her work, but I've been sharing this meditation with just about everybody. And this is actually how I wanted to end today. We're at 30 minutes. And then Zoom just told me in a little pop-up box that they're giving us more time for free. So that's cool. But anyways, though this self-compassion meditation, or RAIN, RAIN is an acronym, and R stands for recognize what's happening. A stands for acknowledge and accept what's happening. The whether it's that frozen feeling. For me lately, it's been this just kind of like undefinable feeling of insecurity, that's just kind of there. That's just like this trembling in the belly. Like, so just accepting that that's there instead of resisting it. I is for investigate, or to really in a curious, compassionate way, like hang out with that feeling, like what's going on here, and like turn it over and be really present with it. And N is for nourish or nurture, like asking the question, what is really going on for me? What am I really needing right now? Or, you know, if it changing that language to be more helpful to you, what are you really needing? Of speaking to that area of the body that you're experiencing, that emotion, or that you know, that feeling that you're experiencing. So let me jump on here, and I'll just share this video meditation with you guys. It's about 11 minutes, and I've found it really helpful. And I can also find the PDF really quickly and put that on there for you guys as well. So Maureen, thank you for your thoughts, because I wholeheartedly agree that it's a framework, and it's coming back. It's not a framework. It's a lens, and coming back to the present moment. That's the most important component.
I went this way, your body went that way, and I couldn't hold it.
Following meditation.
Okay.
Siri went on back. Siri did the same thing to me with the 250.
Is someone talking?
Right goes this way. I put my foot down.
You could mute everybody.
Okay. I'm not sure. I think I can mute all.
And it's because you shifted your body.
Okay. And then Roger, I'll unmute you again. Okay, in the chat, I included that meditation. I welcome you all to listen to it anytime. And right now, if you want to, just as your act of self-care today, if that feels right. And I'll also be updating this final link, this sheet, with resources in the 8 categories. I've just started, honestly. But like I said, as I was taking what I've been collecting and putting it into this framework, it felt helpful to me to kind of get more organized in that way. And so I'll share it with you here too. So I'll be updating this as I kind of move along in my journey. And I'll make it editable. So if there's anything anyone else wants to add as well that they found really helpful in any of these 8 categories, I welcome you to do it. And I'll also add the rain meditation and relaxation and reflection, since that's kind of where that one goes. So thanks for joining. Are there any other questions or thoughts or feedback from me? Cool. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Julie, for doing this. I think it's a really important topic for all of us to be dealing with. And so you're going to be doing 2 more of these at least. We'll see if we can keep you for a longer reign, maybe or a longer run,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
But we'll be doing another one same time next week, on Tuesday at 11 o'clock Mountain Time.
Yeah.
So hopefully you can join us, and encourage other people to come if you've enjoyed this, and let us know if there's anything that other topics you want to hear about. Get a hold of me or get a hold of Julie, and just let us know. And tomorrow at tomorrow at 2 o'clock Mountain Time, 1 o'clock Pacific, Kristen Bonet is going to do a talk on the importance of healthy social connections during this time. So hopefully you can join us for that too. Thanks everybody. We'll be in touch. Good to make sure you take care of yourself. All right.
And if you can't, that's okay too.
Okay. Listen to Julie. Don't listen to me. All right.
Thank you.